Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for viewing this short video, which introduces the place evaluation and learning asset mapping exercise. My name is Dr. Kenneth Harris, and I'm part of the National Evaluation and Learning Partnership, supporting places and Sport England across the country in their evaluation and learning efforts to tackle physical inactivity in place. And the purpose of the short video is to give some kind of an introduction into what we mean by the evaluation learning and asset mapping exercise, what will be commonly referred to as the ELAM. In particular, I'm going to talk about what it is, as in the ELAM exercise, why it's important, what the benefit is for engaging in the process, and how it will be implemented and the different ways in which it could be implemented in a developmental sense as well, for those who are working in whole systems, place-based systemic ways across the country. So the first thing just to highlight very, very briefly is that many of you will be familiar with the conditions of change, the system maturity matrix, and the 9 underlying conditions that are being focused upon, which is linked to the system maturity matrix survey. And in particular, we have the 9th condition, which is cycles of learning and action, which is essentially about there being appropriate methods in place within a place to learn from experience and over time improve place-based working to address physical inactivity. And this condition is very much about learning cultures, learning processes, and the things that are put in place to facilitate the learning that we are looking to see within our place. And the very fact that learning, as we know, isn't a product, it's not something that just happens, it's something that develops over time. And then connected with that as well is this idea of evaluation and learning is an appropriate way to facilitate learning in itself, but also how and in what ways are places using evaluative approaches to test and explore the work that they're involved in around place-based working. So the cycles of learning and action condition is one that's very much connected with the evaluation, learning and asset mapping exercise, and the exercise itself is built around the condition, so will facilitate a much deeper understanding of what the condition is and what it involves. So one of the first things to highlight here is in terms of what is the ELAM and why is it important? Well, I think it comes back to that key question that not just the National Evaluation and Learning Partnership are holding, but what we are collectively holding in terms of places, Sport England, the various partners within places, for example, is what does evaluation and learning look like in a place? We completely accept that not every place is the same. Everyone is different. There are different assets. There's different needs. There's different strengths that occupy spaces in their evaluation makeup and their learning processes. And there is a real good opportunity here to mobilize something that enables places to capture what evaluation and learning actually looks like. We're very much in a position with new places coming on board through expansion, for example, that there's a really good opportunity for us to better understand from a NELP perspective and from a Sport England perspective what the local evaluation assets and needs are. There's also an opportunity here to inform how NELP can support places more locally and proportionately in terms of responding to certain needs and things that are there, while also illuminating things that we might not actually be aware of in terms of innovation, strengths, and areas of good practice. But most importantly, in terms of that top piece around places being able to use this exercise to inform their evaluation and learning practices, we know that some places are in a new environment around some of this work. Some are in a slight refresh space in terms of thinking about where they go with evaluation and learning practices. So again, it's an exercise, an opportunity to really think about how this works and how this looks within a particular place. A big part of this approach is one where we want to really explore with places what assets actually exist within their places. And by assets, we're talking about not just one thing in itself, but we're talking about a whole host of things, which again, these bullet points aren't exhaustive by any means, but they kind of capture some of the things that we might be looking at in relation to assets. For example, people, skills, capabilities, and capacities. We know that it's not just necessarily a research team that works in a silo or works on their own that is driving evaluation and learning within a place. We know that there might be other people within the system. There might be other people at different layers who have real significant skill sets that are helping to drive evaluation and learning. And that's where there is an opportunity to really illuminate that, bring that to life and map where that actually is taking place within a particular area. Other things linked to that might be tools and methods, particular methodologies around evaluation and learning that people are using to good effect, such as stories of change. It could be ripple effects mapping. It could be contribution analysis. It could be ways of really bringing to life theories of change, for example. And the point around linking with people is that idea of community involvement in evaluation, equitable evaluation, thinking about how can we make evaluation everyone's business, and how are places going about mobilizing that, and what tools are they bringing into the mix to do so. It'd be great here to also, in terms of assets, capture what evaluation and learning support places draw upon. So do they, for example, go to academic institutions? Do they have hybrid setups and frameworks where they have in-house support within their organizations? Or do they also have an academic partner or a consultancy that facilitates and offers high level support? So how do places draw upon that support from within and outside their organization is another thing that is really important to capture in relation to those assets. And this idea of learning to action and dissemination and making actual good use of findings, what are some of the knowledge assets that exist out there in terms of what are the strengths and the good ways and the stories that places have in relation to how they go about communicating the learning and impact of their work, and how does that start to influence other parts of the system or the people or the stakeholders, the partners that they're working with, essentially. So those is what we refer to as an asset. And naturally, we understand that there will be needs that will be driven through this process as well. So what does the process look like? How will it be implemented? And essentially, this is a data-driven exercise coordinated by NELP. So that will start off with a NELP representative for your specific area, your cluster, making contact with with the place relationship manager or the strategic lead for the area to start to identify places to conduct this exercise with. And that will involve what we call an evaluation, learning and asset mapping exercise meeting, which will not be any more than an hour and a half to 2 hours, where we will look to explore the 5 key themes here that's on this slide around, number one, defining the evaluation, learning and assets that exist in our place. What does evaluation and learning look like to us? How do we focus on it, and what does it mean for us in our place? The second theme, mapping evaluation, learning assets. So for example, where within our place do certain assets exist? Where are certain activities taking place to help us see where there are gaps, but also where there are strengths? Our learning culture. So what does a learning culture look like? What does our learning process look like? What sort of things and activities and spaces do we create to enable that learning culture to manifest itself? And then the fifth theme, what does learning to action look like? Are there any stories? Are there examples within places where we are seeing some of that learning to action taking shape? So very much a collaborative exercise that will be driven by NELP to start with, but then those findings that will come out through those themes and those thematic areas through a series of questions will then be gathered and shared back with places so that they can make use of it. They can actually do something that is useful to inform their cycles of learning and action. So this is will be a live document. There will be an ELAM explainer, an exercise document that will be available on the website through Evaluating Complexity. And essentially places can start engaging with this work now. They don't necessarily need to wait for example, a meeting to take place. So this is a very much, which is linked to the final point here, a developmental opportunity for places to engage with cycles of learning and action and really think about how this evaluation, learning and asset mapping exercise can help them establish the foundations for evaluation and learning, but start to build on what exists in place, and then also use it as a developmental tool to actually inform the maturity of their cycles of learning and action. So we hope that is an interesting and useful introduction to the evaluation, learning and asset mapping document. Please do view the document and the exercise itself on our website, which will be communicated and made available to you. And feel free to make contact with us through the usual channels if you have any questions. Thank you for your time.